In the early days of game shows, there was a program with three contestants all pretending to be the very same person.
What is your name, please?
My name is Wilma Rudolph. My name is Wilma Rudolph.
My name is Wilma Rudolph.
Only one of these people is the real Wilma Rudolph. The other two are imposters.
A panel of celebrity judges would play to determine which contestant was telling the truth.
Johnny Carson and Kitty Carlisle on To Tell the Truth with your host.
Hello, my name is Eric Sherman, and today I would like to address your concerns about...
Oh, let's stop right there. Actually, I'm Eric Sherman. And that's really the issue at hand, isn't it? Not just how do we protect the academic integrity of our courses, but how do we make sure that someone isn't masquerading as one of our students, presenting their work as their own. Perhaps circumstances beyond your control have forced you to scramble to finish the remainder of the year online, prompting you to wrestle with questions that even the most experienced online learning experts have been struggling with for years. And when things are out of our control, often we look for other areas in which to gain more control, to compensate. But as with so many things, sometimes a paradigm shift is necessary, and under perfect circumstances, that can take months, if not years. But you don't have years. So let's talk about the issue, some underlying causes to your concerns, and some possible remedies. First, let's identify what the accrediting bodies have to say about this issue and what they require. Now, they're all very similar, and you can search up your specific accrediting body and see what their oversight and regulations are. But I'm going to use the HLC as an example because theirs is based, as many are, on the Higher Education Opportunity Act of 2008. And the HLC makes the following requirements of institutions offering online programs. In verifying the identity of students who participate in class or coursework, the institution may make use of one or more methods at the option of the institution, which may include, but need not be limited to, secure login and passcode, proctored examinations, and new or other technologies and practices that are effective in verifying the identity of students. Such methods must have responsible and appropriate safeguards to protect student privacy. Understand right here that the accrediting bodies aren't requiring all of these, or even two of these, but merely one or more of these methods. And surely we can agree that one is not enough, but it's worth pointing out that even they, the accrediting bodies, are a little ambiguous about the third requirement. They're really leaving it up to you. They just want to be assured that you are being intentional about academic integrity without spelling out exactly what you have to do. Now let's look at the issue from a historical perspective. For years, many of us have been doing the same old, and while we're not asking you to reinvent the wheel, it's worth noting that the easiest ways to cheat often find their footings in our worst assessments. Low frequency, high impact testing with lots of memorization to prove retention, they're used far too often instead of using high-frequency, low-impact assessments that actually demonstrate mastery or the ability to apply knowledge. Now, this isn't unique to online delivery, right? This is prevalent in the face-to-face courses, and the only real difference is that with new technology, there are just often different ways to cheat, not necessarily more. So what may actually work best is not finding ways to duplicate what you're doing in a face-to-face course, but adapting better assessments in online delivery. This is a really great time and opportunity to see if there are better ways, better assessments to evaluate comprehension and mastery. And while that's a much deeper discussion that we can have at a later time, I just wanted to throw it out there. So now let's talk about some of the immediate things that you can do for your online course. First and foremost, how do we ensure that the students who are on our course roster are actually the ones who are doing the work? Well, again, let's be completely clear. I'll bet you are more worried about this in an online environment than you have ever been in a brick and mortar, right? Do you start a face-to-face course calling up all of the students, asking them to show your ID and verify they are who they say they are? Now, maybe you're taking attendance and calling out a name, but are you 100% certain that they are who are calling out the name? Okay, maybe you're a small program and after the second or third year, yes, they're very familiar to you. Or maybe you're counting on the other students to say, well, that's really not Susan. But what if it's a night class and not everyone knows each other? What if they're people who are driving in? These are things that we take for granted often in a face-to-face course, and we just assume that things are so much worse online. But obviously, yes, there are things we can do. One of the things that I have done in the past is taken advantage of a proctoring tool like Respondus. And I know some of you are considering this. Understand this can be a costly service, but even if you never use the actual proctoring tool, many institutions that I worked for in the past, I've established it so that an attestation quiz at the start of the course employs the video recording tool where the student must show their face along with a picture ID to identify they are who they say they are. And while a service like Respondus may be cost prohibitive for you, you can still require the students to take an academic integrity quiz at the beginning of each course, require them to upload a picture of themselves, and make the rest of the course dependent on them passing that integrity quiz, attestation quiz, which is just a yes, I agree to these. This makes your dedication to academic integrity clear and enjoins them in a contract, and make sure that if there are any issues or red flags, the students know how seriously you are going to take policies and there will be repercussions. One word of caution, one of the reasons I like Respondus is because all of the information, the video recordings, the picture ID, everything is stored on their servers. They're responsible. Regardless where you host your LMS, many people require the students to upload a profile image, and that's really non-specific. But when it comes to uploading something like a driver's license or a student ID that might have personal information on it, that can get tricky, and you really have to check with your academic security protocols before you start asking students to provide personal identification that you may be storing and filtering through your LMS. But definitely require your students to add a professional or a business casual profile image of themselves that will identify them when they post, make a submission, or when you're checking the grades. The picture is right there next to their name, and this will remind you who they are as you're employing our next suggestion, which is use the discussion board and take advantage of adding media content. In almost all major LMSs now, there is the ability for the students to either use a webcam on their computer or to upload a video to the discussion board. Instead of asking students to type out every paper or discussion board topic, consider making at least one of them a video essay or something like that. Again, sure, they may have someone else write it, but this is something that could happen in a face-to-face course, right? They present somebody else's work. Yes, they could be reading it, but right now this is just about letting you know that the person sitting down in front of the computer is really the person who you met at the beginning of class when they introduced themselves through the attestation quiz or the discussion board where they uploaded a picture or a video. This is who you met and who they presented initially. And speaking about meeting your students, during the first week, consider making it a requirement for them to attend at least your first offering of virtual office hours. Even though it may be an asynchronous course, tell them that you want to make sure that they have the ability to connect if they have questions and want to take advantage of your, say, once a week virtual office hours. Then, when they log in, this is just another way in which you're verifying they are who they say they are and connecting that face and personality with their in-course identity. Now, perhaps you don't have time for any of this and you're just saying, Eric, enough of all of this theory. Just help me to stop or at least hinder online cheating. Okay, so here are a few options. If you're talking about quizzes and tests, this is a way in which to make it more difficult for students to share information while they're taking an online assessment. Now, most all of the major LMSs have these features, but I'm going to use Canvas to demonstrate some of these. One of the best ways to ensure students aren't cheating is to create or to use an already created question banks. This makes certain that all of the students receive questions from the same pool of knowledge, but are not necessarily receiving the exact same questions. You can dictate that they must receive a certain number of questions from a designated number of chapters or topics, and they all meet the learning objectives for that unit. But it will guarantee that they are not receiving the same questions, so that there is no reason for them to even compare answers. These banks can either be provided by a textbook publisher or created by the instructor or institution and are tailored around the learning objectives, making sure they're demonstrating comprehension of a specific number of questions from a certain number of objectives. Also, you can employ some of the features available inside the quiz tool in Canvas, as well as additional LMSs. Not only can you randomize the order of the question, so that the question number 4 that Susan is presented isn't the same number 4 that James is asked, but you can also randomize the multiple choices so that A for Susan is not the same as A for James. So then if you employ both of them together, it really makes it more difficult for them to try to share answers. Many instructors take advantage of these randomizations to also release the test during a specific window of availability and have a time limit, so that students are more interested in finishing their own test than trying to figure out which answer lines up with their classmates. But these are all of the ways in which you can immediately employ features currently available to you in Canvas to try to hinder cheating. And while these may be good options for you immediately, I do want to point out not everyone considers them to be beneficial, especially during such a time as this. In a recent article on the Inside Higher Ed website, they offered 5 reasons to stop doing timed online exams during COVID-19, and I think they make some really good points. Right now, though, this is all about what works best for you. But again, we would love to discuss ways which we can create better assessments and additional ways that may serve you and your students better that will help them use the online tools to demonstrate comprehension and mastery through more visual and verbal communication, presentations, and group projects, as opposed to using some of the previously used tools that are more easily used to masquerade as someone else or cheat the system that have been employed for years, well before any of us were even going online. Thank you so very much. If you have additional questions or you want to talk about academic integrity further, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're looking forward to hearing from you.